So what is the paleo diet? Is there anyone here that's new to the paleo diet? Never done it before?
Today was my first.
It's like new people. It's change lives. So paleo diet, we're eating the way we're genetically adapted to eat. So with the advent of grains, which is something around maybe 10,000 years ago, it's not very, we don't have very much genetic adaptation to the grains. So our bodies aren't really designed to eat grains, especially gluten. So we want to avoid gluten, processed foods, dairy, soy. We want to avoid legumes, including peanuts, potatoes. Sweet potatoes are an exception. We're going to eat meat, some fruits, nuts, seeds, vegetables, things like that. So implementing the paleo diet, what I like to do is, some people say go strict paleo 100%, you're crazy if you don't. I like to say go 80-20. So you're paleo 80% of the time, and 20% of the time you're eating kind of whatever you want. You have a little bit of fun, enjoying life. Yeah, cheating. Everybody likes to cheat. So in the first month of paleo, you notice is your biggest hurdle. So you're going to start eating like this, and you're going to be hungry all the time. You're going to feel tired, kind of lethargic. And it takes about 4 weeks to get over this hurdle. And it's the biggest pressing point for people to get through. If you can get through that, you'll make it through. You'll be all right. So, and if you're at the grocery store, stick to the outer perimeters. The more you go inside, the more you're going to find box garbage and all the good stuff. So, stick to the outer perimeters, and better yet, if you can find a local farmer's market, a local farmer who you know, and you know how they raise their foods and their crops and things, that's much better than the grocery store. Another thing, you always hear, oh, eat 6 times a day, it's going to rev up your metabolism. This is super important, do this. There's really no scientific basis or any kind of foundation to this. It's kind of a nutritional fallacy. So the biggest thing is eat when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not. It's really that simple. So what do we eat? We eat meat. We like meat, grass-fed beef preferably, because it has a high omega-3 content. Whereas when we feed cows corn, they have a huge amount of omega-6, which is a pro-inflammatory fatty acid. We want to avoid the omega-6s because of all the cooking oils and all the things we have in modern society that make that omega-6 profile up here and the omega-3 here. We're probably somewhere around 301, where we should be closer to maybe 10 to 1 these days. So you want you can eat turkey, chicken, fish. You want to make sure your fish is wild caught because farm raised is going to have a high omega-6 profile. The fish are fed antibiotics and things like that, generally unhealthy. So when you look for your meat, if you have a local farmer you can purchase from, or if you know a farmer, that's the best way to go because you can ask them about their practices. You can say, is your meat grass-fed, is it grass-finished, and they can tell you exactly what they do and how they do it. And the same thing with your turkey, chicken, fish. If they're raising without antibiotics, you're not promoting the growth of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which we then produce, and then it causes us to have the antibiotic resistance genes as well, which could be a major problem in the future. So another thing, vegetables. As much as you want, unlimited amounts. Try to have a varied amount of vegetables. Try olives, try new things. Try to go organic, and again, local if you can. After WODs, the best thing I found is sweet potatoes because they're super anti-inflammatory. They're really high glycemic, so it's the one time you can enjoy a sweet potato and it's going to actually be utilized well. Fruits. What you want to do on fruits is mostly berries. Blueberries, cherries, blackberries, things like that. Those are going to be your high fiber berries and they're probably your best choice. You want to avoid, if you're trying to lose weight, bananas and soft fruits like that because they've got a ton of sugar and they're going to hit you really fast. It's going to be a detriment to your weight loss.
So do you eat bananas after a while?
Yes. So after a WOD is when you can eat your high sugar things that are going to spike your blood glucose. So nuts and seeds, you want to choose nuts and seeds, mostly nuts that are of a high omega-3 variety. Most nuts have a really, really high amount of omega-6s and a really low amount of omega-3s. So the best ones that I found when analyzing the profiles are walnuts and macadamia nuts. So they've got a 6-to-1 and a 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6, omega-3, and that's the best. All seeds are going to be basically omega-6. You kind of want to avoid seeds, and your best nuts are your macadamia nuts and your walnuts. And then that goes into, you can use macadamia nut butter, walnut butter if you can find it, to replace peanut butter. And then coconut. I find it to be the holy grail. Eat, drink, and breathe coconut. Should be on mantle. So coconut water, nature's Gatorade. It's almost the same thing, except it doesn't have all these added sugars, high fructose corn syrup, and all this other healthy sports additives that we put into our athletes.
Which, by the way, we are also vegetarian coconut waters.
So today is my first day of doing it.
Yes.
So,
So, lots of
Sorry, Casey.
So, what part do you not like?
I don't like the taste.
So it's found coconut to be kind of an acquired taste. At first, I didn't really like it as much either, and I just kind of forced myself to drink it, read it, and now I love it. I don't think I can live without it. But if you don't like it, you don't have to take in coconut. You can still do paleo fine without coconut. It just provides a really good foundation.
There's a lot of recipes too that have like coconut milk, coconut oil in it, and you actually don't taste the coconut once it's cooked in. Like there's a spaghetti, creamy spaghetti sauce that I made that has coconut milk in it, and I'm like, ew, coconut milk with spaghetti, and it was amazing. You don't taste it, so give it a chance.
Yeah, if you let it sit for one day after you
Yeah.
cook something like that, it tastes good.
Yeah.
So think about if you're a runner, biking, swimming, anything like that, drinking coconut water during or after your event, it's just like taking a sports drink. So I would go for that. It's really high in potassium, and you want to look for it without added sugar, because you're going to go in the store and they're going to say, oh, coconut water, 100% natural. Well, it's natural, but it's got a ton of sugar. You're going to have 40 grams of sugar, it's just like drinking a soda. So make sure you check that sugar content, make sure the ingredients are just 100% coconut water. Coconut milk, one of my favorites as well. It's rich in medium chain triglycerides, which is a saturated fatty acid. People say, oh no, that's crazy talk. Saturated fats are bad for you. You should leave. But medium chain triglycerides are shown to actually promote weight maintenance without affecting your bad cholesterol. So they're generally going to raise your HDL, your high density lipoproteins, and not affect your low density, which are your supposedly bad cholesterol. So, and then the saturated fats plus the lauric acid, which is going to, just like I said, raise your HDL, your good cholesterol.
Chandler, do you recommend any specific coconut milk?
I like,
Is it the can or the carton or?
the can is going to be your natural coconut milk, but if you want to, you can get the carton. They make an unsweetened version, organic. It's made by So Delicious. And it doesn't have all the added sugars and markup. So coconut oil. It's my favorite high heat cooking oil. So if you're going to fry eggs or do anything like that, this is probably your best oil. The reason it's so good is because it's a saturated fat and they don't have double bonds, which makes it a really, really stable bond. So if you're cooking with olive oil, it's an unsaturated fat. It has double bonds, which makes it highly unstable and causes all kinds of chaos and cooking high heat. But olive oil is a really good source of omega-3, and you can put it on your salads and things, just don't cook on high heat with it. So sleep. Everybody loves sleep. So Rob Wolf a lot of the time says, sleep as much as you can without getting divorced or fired. So you want to sleep 6 to 8 hours a night in a dark room with no artificial light, no TV, no night light, nothing like that, pitch black. So when you sleep with lights on, it's shown to severely inhibit your melatonin production and create a lot of other issues while you're sleeping, so you don't get a good night's sleep. You really think you might be. So you wake up groggy and tired and you say, oh, I can't do this. So another good thing, read the book, Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, Survival. It's one of the best books on sleep and why we do it and why sleeping not lying will affect us. Sleep deprivation also mimics the aging process. So unless you sleep, the quicker you're going to age. The older you'll look. And then another interesting tidbit is shift work is listed as a carcinogen by the CDC. So shift work is bad. Supplementation. There's a couple of supplements I like to promote. I don't like to say, oh, you need to take 782 different things, and your counter needs to be full, and you need to buy a bunch of stuff a month. So what you want to take in is fish oil, which is huge, because we want to promote the anti-inflammatory aspect. And the best are liquids, because you're going to take it in and it's going to be absorbed quickly. Carlson's and Nordic Naturals are probably the top. The ones that I like, they taste good. You can take them in a little shot glass in the mornings. or pill. Costco makes a really good economical brand that I like as well. And when you're taking your fish oil, we like to say take 1 gram per 10 pounds of body weight, but actually throwing out a number is usually bad because people take it to heart and then it's hard to get them to adjust. So what we want to do is, if you're on the way, if you're inflamed and you're just starting paleo, you're taking a lot more fish oil. And if you've been doing paleo for a while, you're not inflamed, you feel good, then you want to take a lot less fish oil. So a lot more would be somewhere like 4 grams, a lot less would be somewhere around 1 gram. And when you look at it, don't look at the label and it says, oh, 1,000 grams or 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. Look on the back and look at EPA DHA. So that's going to be your total fish oil content. The front is kind of a fallacy.
Hey, Chairman.
Yes.
When do you recommend taking supplements? Does it matter morning or night or
I
after?
would say fish oil, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
You want to take, if you're taking pills and you want to take a lot of pills, take them with your meals.
Okay.
It's not really going to affect you whenever you take the fish oil. Just maybe not right after a while.
And,
Krill oil, if you looked at the krill oil, I read a little bit about that pretty recently.
I think krill oil is not too bad. I think it's a good supplement. The only thing I don't like is the vitamin A and the vitamin. If you're taking a lot of vitamin D, sometimes it feeds the vitamin D. So the vitamin A and vitamin D have issues together. That would be the only issue I would see with it. The next thing, magnesium, relaxation, good recovery. It's going to help you sleep a lot better. I've had a lot of people get off some certain things that they were taking, and they take magnesium, and they're on a paleo diet, and all of a sudden they don't have to take pills anymore. They're feeling good, and life is great. So magnesium, I would recommend take it before bed. Don't take it with your morning coffee, or you'll be sleeping in it.
How much?
Of the magnesium, you're probably going to want to take, start off with maybe a half of what the dosage says, and then go up a half a gram, maybe a half a gram, and then a full, then 1.5, and then 2. Because it's also a diuretic, so if you just pop off 2 right away, you're going to be hurting. So the next thing, vitamin D. Unless you're out in the sun for more than 20 minutes every day and you're out there burning a lot, vitamin D is really important to take in. We're starting to see that vitamin D is actually more important than calcium in promoting, stopping bone demineralization and things like that. So rather than saying, oh no, we need to take calcium, we probably should take vitamin D.
I've also heard that as you age, you process vitamin D poorly.
Yes, you start to process it a lot less efficiently. And the next thing is your omega-3s, supplementation. If you're taking a plant-based, you're not very efficient converting it. So you're going to take it in as ALA, and your body has to convert it to the EPA and DHA, and it's going to convert maybe half of it. So you're going to get a lot less, and it's not going to convert very well at all. So fish oil is probably the top way to get it. Try to avoid any kind of sources like flax or anything like that. So vices, everybody loves their vices. Alcohol. Liquor is the best, probably tequila, because the agave is generally gluten-free, it's clear. NorCal margaritas,
Yeah.
you Google that, it's amazing. Gluten-free paleo margarita. Gin, vodka, whiskey, things like that. A lot of the clear liquors are going to be okay. You want to consume them in moderation, of course. Red wine is acceptable, it's high in antioxidants, and it may improve your insulin sensitivity if you have an issue with that. The next thing, beer is bad because it's full of gluten. And they make a gluten-free beer, which is maybe sorghum, and some people tolerate it, and some people do worse on it. So generally avoid the beer. So artificial sweeteners. Generally avoid artificial sweeteners. They're really not very good. Stevia seems to be okay, and it seems to be not affecting blood glucose like some regular sugars, or some artificial sweeteners will still hit you because of the taste. You take them in, and even the taste will make your insulin spike. So, but the only thing I would say about stevia is we don't have any long-term studies looking at lectin content. We'll go into lectins in a few minutes. But otherwise, it seems to be okay. Diet soda, avoid it. It's not going to be good. The way I look at it is, why are you drinking this? Is this promoting your health? Is this doing something for you other than tasting delicious? No. So, it's something to avoid. Dark chocolates, next thing. Try to get it 70% or higher, and you can find it everywhere now. It's really popular. It's full of antioxidants. It's really healthy. It's going to promote an anti-inflammatory place in your body. So, don't go crazy on it, but it's okay as a dessert. Next thing, coffee and tea. They're rich in flavonoids. Coffee can possibly produce heartburn. Overall, they're not a bad choice. They just don't add sugars and like major amounts of dairy to your coffee and cream. If you drink it black, you're generally okay to drink it. It's not going to kill you. Coffee's decent. The big thing is getting rid of your gluten in your diet. So issues with grain consumption. So you're telling me not to eat grains, but why? So this is including corn too. Corn is a grain. What we want to do, grains have lectins in them, which binds to your insulin receptors. It attaches to your gut lining, and it causes all kinds of immune responses. It causes your body to attack its own immune system. Because of the wheat germ, you have gluten. And then phytates, they inhibit your so all those good like minerals and things taken in with these opposable grains, the phytates are inhibiting the absorption of those minerals. So I take them, oh, oops, they're not working. And they're going to increase inflammation because of this. So gluten, big one. So we're not genetically adapted to consume gluten completely yet. We're still evolving and trying to get to that point because consumption of gluten is relatively recent in evolutionary history in the past 10 years. Issues with it, we have tissue transglutaminase, which your body will send out anti-transglutaminase antibodies to attack the tissue transglutaminase and gluten, and then it causes your body to be sensitive to it, and it's shown to increase inflammation in your body because the antibodies are basically saying this is wrong, it shouldn't be in here, let me attack this and get it out of here. So the next thing, anti-gliadin, IgA. So it's dispatched to get rid of gliadin, which is a component of gluten, and it can lead to increased inflammation, leaky gut, and other autoimmune disorders. So the way to look at it is, while we're eating gluten, why is our body producing things to get rid of gluten? So there's something wrong here. Probably shouldn't be consuming this. So dairy consumption. Dairy, lactose, it's not very well tolerated by a lot of people. There's a lot of growth hormones in it. It can cause acne and things like this in our youth. That's why we're seeing a lot of acne in kids these days. Your pancreas, it's only going to produce lactase up until around age 2, which is the enzyme to break apart the lactose. And it does that because when we're babies, we need to take in that lactose because it's breast milk. But after we get to somewhere around age 2, that's kind of a general term, it's going to stop producing it because we don't need it anymore. And we're the only mammal that actually drinks another mammal's milk. So the next thing, casein, which is the milk protein, a lot of people have become allergic to. And this is the issue here. We drink milk from another animal, our body doesn't recognize it, and then it can cause an allergy or an intolerance because the body wants to get rid of it. And milk is high glycemic. It's liquid. You take it in, and it's going to spike your insulin really fast. So it's going to promote weight gain. And the next thing, because of growth promoters, IGF-1, dairy, it's going to make you get acne, especially in youth who are still growing, things like that. And it's going to, it's starting to be shown to possibly make cancer cells develop faster. So legumes, including peanuts, so your beans, soybeans, things like that. They need to be cooked in order to be edible because they're poisonous otherwise. The next thing, we have phytates like we talked about, and those lectins as well. We have a good alternative to peanut butter if you're really into peanut butter is almond butter, hazelnut butter, any kind of nut butter. So rice. Rice is generally not as bad as gluten. You can tolerate it a little bit better, but it's still not going to give you the kind of caloric or the kind of nutrient profile you would get from vegetables or meat or anything like that. And it does have phytates in it. It's got the trypsin inhibitor, which can irritate your digestive system. It causes other issues like that. We have hemagglutinins. It interferes with the absorption of nutrients across the cell wall. Wild rice is the one thing that might actually be okay to eat because I haven't seen a lot of issues with it. It seems to be generally okay. And if you want to know more, a lot on this paleo stuff, robwolf.com is a good source. Mark's Daily Apple does a lot of good stuff. The paleodiet.com, which is Lauren Cordain, person who brought it up. My email is here if anyone wants to write down and ask me questions through email or anything like that. Paleo Plan is a good thing, and then the books that I would recommend would be The Paleo Solution by Rob Wolf, Primal Blueprint by Mark Sisson, Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, and Survival by T.S. Wiley should be on your #1, and then Good Calories, Bad Calories is kind of, probably these three at the top, I would read if you're really interested in gaining more on this. And then sources. So does anyone have any questions, glaring issues?
Can we,
Can you email me a copy of this?
Yes.
And I can just make it available on our blog post for today?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So everybody can know.
So you wrote it down.
Yeah.
So any questions? Yeah.
So I noticed, like with the cookies, the agave nectar, and then, you know, I made paleo pancakes, and then they have agave nectar syrup, and, but you're still eating sugar.
Yeah, it's still going to convert
It's
to
still
sugar.
sugar. So-
Agave is showing to hit you a lot slower than sugar is. So you're going to take it in, and it's not going to go boom and spike your insulin. It's going to take a little bit longer. So it's a better choice, but yeah, you're still taking in added sugars. So the big thing in paleo is we want to avoid grains, pasta, anything like that, legumes, soy, dairy. And then once you get to a point where you're fully adapted on a paleo diet, you're at the weight you want to be, you don't hurt, you don't have joint pain, inflammation, you feel right, then you can say, well, maybe I want to try some dairy. You kind of progressively add it back in, and then you say, oh man, this really hurts me. I didn't realize this before, and then take it right back out.
So I know you said you advocate the 80-20 plan,
Yeah.
but if somebody's just starting paleo, do you do like the 30-day kind of clean your system out, reset it, start over type philosophy, and then like you said, start adding stuff in? Or, you know, because for some people, 80-20 sounds more reasonable, but then once they get that sheet, it's hard to come off of it. It's
Yeah.
80%.
Turns out, and then it's 20/80 instead.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. When you first started, you say, hey, 80-20 sounds great, yeah. And then you say, oh man, I cheated, I'm never going back. So when you're first starting, try to go probably 90-91. But do that full 30-day detox plan.
Yeah, guys, I think that's a good point. I mean, that, you know, for me, I have a really hard time with sugar. I'm addicted to sugar. And I think the 30 days is really important to try and clean that out of your system. Like Chandler said, you know, it's going to take you 2 to 4 weeks probably to rid your body of that craving. But I think the better, you're going to have better results with this if you go strict that first 30 days and clean your body out. Because I know for me, I mean, like Debbie said, that one cheat day for me will turn into 3 in a row and 4 in a row, and it's a real slippery slope for me at least. And I think the more you can do to get your body cleaned out and get used to this, the better you're going to be. And then like Chandler said, you know, you have time to sort of add things back in and see how your body responds to it. But I think that first 30 days, the better you can be about not cheating, I think the better results you're going to see, and the easier it's going to be after you get over that threshold.
For maximum fat loss, you're probably going to want to be in ketosis, which means you're really limiting your sugar and you're using ketone bodies instead of glucose. That's you know, when you're doing that, you don't want to be running marathons or 10Ks every day, but it's a really good way to get moving fast is to be in ketosis and just kind of do moderate exercise instead of really hard, lots of fun.
So I know, like, you know, the focus, everybody in here, almost everybody, I pinched their body fat today, and they're thinking, how am I going to lose weight? And I know a lot of people in here do at least some level of paleo diet, but what advice would you give people specifically, like how would they, what would be the low-hanging fruit for them to lose weight over the next 6 weeks?
What?
So basically, what would be the most important things for people to do? I mean, you know, because like not eating peanuts, probably not as important as, you know, not eating a donut and
I would say the biggest thing to lose weight, if you're on a time period, would be eliminate your processed grains. That's number one. That'll take almost half your weight off. That's going to be your biggest source. Your dairy is probably your next source. So those two are probably your top ones. If you eliminate those, you're probably going to be pretty good. And maybe your rice, if you're eating a lot of rice. So processed grains, gluten, any kind of those processed carbohydrates, and your dairy and your rice would probably be the top 3.
What about caloric control? I mean, you know, paleo is more about quality than quantity, but for maximal weight loss, would you limit intake?
I wouldn't really limit your caloric intake because when you shift to a paleo diet, you're going to automatically reduce your caloric intake anyway. So you're going to go from something like the government recommends, 2,500 calories a day, to maybe 1,300. So, and you can function off of that very well.
Guys, I think that's a good point too. You know, I talked to a lot of people when I did this last year. I talked to a lot of people about it at work. A lot of people were interested in it, And I think one of the things to think about is that it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
That's why I call it paleo.
Yeah, that was good, because, you know, a lot of people will say, well, aren't you not eating enough food? And really, you're not limiting the amount of food, you're just changing that quality of food. So you can eat vegetables, eat that stuff. Keep eating it, you know, that's not gonna add to your calorie intake that much, so.
You can eat pounds and pounds and pounds of
Yeah.
vegetables, and you won't even come close to the equivalent of vegetable.
Yeah,
What you're doing is you're trading calorie dense food for nutritionally dense food. And so even though you're eating less calories, like you're worried about eating 1,000 less calories a day, you're actually getting more nutrients, so you actually need to eat less food. Or less calories.
So the best way to think about it, if I drew it on the whiteboard, is what I want you to do, I have a question about it. And then you say, do I need it? Is it caloric dense? Yes or no? You say no, you don't need it. You say yes, I need it. Then you have a question about it, it's probably not something you should eat. Well, I kind of think it's quasi-paleo. Probably that.
Probably not. That's something.
I think I might understand like proteins, vegetables, et cetera. Eat as possible and you really don't have. I'm a little concerned about sitting at the work and trying to think it's a time issue and maybe I will just have to steak for breakfast or whatever. Is that gonna work? I mean, where does the brain really use? It's a fuel for the brain.
So, right, so the preferred fuel for brains is generally glucose. Preferred fuel for the body. Then if you go into ketosis or things like that, you can start utilizing fats. And then you can also utilize proteins for fuel. So you don't necessarily just need carbohydrates for fuel. You can also utilize, we have different processes that can utilize protein and fats as well.
And then how long would that switch over take?
So I would say, yeah, it takes usually about 3 to 4 weeks is what I've seen. And during the 3 weeks, you're kind of lethargic and stuff. What I would do is carry around some coconut water with you.
That's many changes.
The other thing is to increase your fat intake. You can't do this if you just eat meat and vegetables. You have to increase the fat intake. So you really, I mean, in terms of, I understand your problem, in terms of being sharp and all that. So sometimes if we add more fat in, especially in the morning when we're not used to that, it will help your brain sustain energy over that longer period of time.
So it's a steak in the morning, throw some avocado on the top of it.
Right, avocados,
Cook your eggs
olives.
in coconut oil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does your body assimilate sprouted grain breads differently than regular grain bread?
Not really. It's still gonna break them down. It's still gonna produce the same thing. It's kind of like quasi, like, well, it's kind of okay. It's generally a grain, so we say no. It's not gonna be as good.
Sprouting will like reduce the lectin count, but it doesn't do anything to the gluten and it's still not a good idea.
So the gluten's the big issue. Gluten is our enemy. That's what we're trying to avoid.
So bean sprouts and things like that in the ground, you should not eat.
Probably not. No. It should be your vegetable source.
where do eggs fit in all this?
Eggs are okay. The only issue with eggs is if you have an autoimmune disorder or any kind of leaky gut or things like that, eggs can possibly cause an issue there. But otherwise, you're going to be fine eating eggs.
How many is too much?
What was that?
How many is too much?
It's not really just however many you can eat to be hungry. There's no real
5 dozen a week.
with eggs. Protein powder, I think they're okay. You want to try to, if you can, get a protein powder that's a grass-fed variety.
I did buy the stronger fashion protein.
So that'll be okay because that's grass-fed. And the only bad thing I think about liquid nutrition is that it's high glycemic. So make sure if you're going to do liquid nutrition, it's after your lunch. Because you're going to drink it and it's going to spike your blood glucose really fast. That's why I say sweet potatoes, things like that, because they're a solid food.
You say leaky gut or that.
Oh, it's just an autoimmune issue where you kind of get a hole in your gut. It stems from lectins and things attached to your gut lining and causes autoimmune issues.
They're basically just small ulcerations, right? Just like little ulcerations in the gut lining. So, and basically you don't want, the gut lining is supposed to separate, you know, your GI tract from the rest of your body. I mean, you don't want things passing across that wall. That should be very, very well regulated. But if there's, I'm sure that you can get a blood panel and find out.
Yeah, you'll start to get issues related to autoimmune. Then you have to get a blood panel, and they would look at different aspects of it.
Do go to doctors. I'm just thinking of something you know that.
Oh yeah, and if you ask your doctor, hey, I think I have an autoimmune issue, but maybe like, you know, they will say, well, yes, you do this.
Chairman? I read here a while back that blood barrier between your brain, protects your brain from disease and getting in there. And that olive oil supposedly is a really good source of fat because it goes through that blood barrier easier than any other oil.
It could possibly help. Olive oil with the omega-3 fats, and it's really good for cognitive brain development. So it's going to possibly be helpful. That's why when babies, when they're fed, when they're young and they're drinking breast milk, omega-3 is really, really, really important because it's going to really, really help their brain development and life.
And actually, there's a spot in the blood-brain barrier that's a little thinner, and there are receptors on the other side, and when the toxins in your blood are too high, that's where you get the response for vomiting. Your brain is sensing high toxin levels, so like if you drink too much and the toxicity of your blood goes up, that's why you throw up from, you know, how many people threw up last night? but yeah, so the toxicity is really high, that blood-brain barrier senses high levels of toxicity. It says, there's got to be something in my gut that's bad, so it's an involuntary response from the stomach.
What was the number on the back of the fish oil that you said you needed the?
Yeah, look at the EPA and DHA. If you're buying fish oil, another thing, don't get omega-6 fish oil, let's say omega-3 6 times, something like that. Get only omega-3. Because we're trying to reduce our omega-6, pro-inflammatory, and increase our omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory.
So don't get some.
Yeah, don't get 6. 6 is bad.
Well, you've got more of it than you want already, so we're trying to change the ratio, but I mean, putting voluntarily more 6 in your body, then that's a mess.
Is there any other questions? Comments, concerns?
I have an oil question, I guess. Besides the coconut oil and the,
Olive oil.
is there another oil you can use to cook with? I was talking to Super earlier, and I wasn't sure for sunflower, or is there something that's close if you're,
You could probably cook with canola maybe, because it's made from the rapeseed. It's going to be a little bit better. Sunflower, things like that are going to be really, really high in omega-6. So you're going to get that omega-6 imbalance. So I would say either maybe canola, but your top should be coconut or olive.
They make an avocado too, but I don't know
Avocado oil would probably be pretty good.
what.
It would probably be pretty good. I don't know about high heat cooking with it.
It's okay.
I was like in the sprays and stuff.
Yeah, in
maybe
sprays.
spray it.
Anything else?
They also make coconut oil that doesn't have the flavor removed. That's what's called denatured or something. You can buy it like that.
Also,
The
just
taste is a
remember,
real problem for you.
on your paleo plan, number 1, just get rid of all processed carbohydrates, anything in a box, all your gluten-containing items, and that's your biggest hurdle. That'll be your number 1 thing to promote weight loss and reduce inflammation.
They get lots of spices.
Yeah, spices are good. Cinnamon in your coffee.
Spices are free, yes.
Oh, no, they're not.
Yeah, they're expensive. I was also going to mention, because like you said, coconut's the holy grail. A lot of people don't realize, because they never shop at Asian markets, but if you want to get good prices on coconut products, go to Asian markets. What would you say, Supa, like the coconut milk is usually how much at Whole Foods and comparable at Asian markets?
Just at Winco's,
cheaper than everybody else.
My dogs are
The only
dancing.
downside is that most of the time the people that don't speak English. And
Looking out the back door.
they, we're not real big on customer service. They have a lot of signs, so you gotta have to know.
Come here.
So what we might do is if everybody's like interested in picking up some products from the Asian market or something, maybe we could set aside a day where, we go down there with Supa and we just say, okay, here's where it is. And the labels are all in other languages, so that's also a downside. So you have to go by the picture on the can.